You're listening to Wealthy-esque. We are a community of lawyers who believe that true wealth is having control of our time. I'm Ro Thomas, and as a busy wife, mom, and former Big Law associate, I know all too well the tension between the culture of the legal profession and pretty much everything else you want to do in life. That's why each week I'm bringing you the information and tools you need to improve your money mindset and manage your money to create true wealth. Because ultimately, it's not about the money. It's about the freedom and flexibility the money affords. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. I hope you're doing well and having an amazing day so far. Today, we are talking about the trade-offs we make with our money and acknowledging the choices we make with our money. I did a presentation for a group on the concept of financial independence. And if you're not familiar with financial independence, it is the point at which you have enough in your investments and other assets that you can cover your living expenses and no longer need to work to earn money. And as I was teaching on this concept, and specifically the rule of thumb for reaching financial independence, which is to have 25 times your annual expenses invested, one of the attendees asked what she's supposed to do because she and her family need their annual vacation to Hawaii. And I told her to first recognize that that's a lifestyle choice that they're making. And so if that annual trip is really important to them and they want to keep it, then yeah, it's going to take them longer to achieve financial independence than if they weren't taking it or if they weren't taking it every year. But the thing that really struck me about her question was the way she said it, as though she had no choice in the matter. She said it like, obviously, we can't do anything about this trip to Hawaii. It's just part of the expenses. So what am I supposed to do about that? And what came to mind for me in that moment was how often we have discretionary expenses that we treat as if they're necessities. So we think about them as though we have no choice as to whether we spend on those things or not. And the thing I always want you to keep in mind is the trade-offs of your decisions and the choices that you're making with your money. The money that you use for one thing is necessarily money you can't use for something else. So the money this person's using for her annual family vacations to Hawaii is money that she can't use to invest and achieve financial independence. And on top of that, the choice to go to Hawaii every year means she needs to have more money invested to achieve financial independence because her annual expenses are higher. Now, I'm not saying that the choice to go to Hawaii every year is wrong or bad. I think it's absolutely fine if that's what she and her family really want to do. But recognize that when you're spending that money on the trip to Hawaii or the bigger house or the nicer car or whatever it is for you, that's money that you can't put toward your financial goals. So you have to decide whether those things are worth that trade-off to you. In some cases, they might be, but in some cases, maybe not. But many of us don't realize the actual trade-offs we're making or consider them when we are making spending decisions. And when you become aware of those trade-offs, then you might decide to make different choices. I say all the time that true wealth is having control of your time. But what happens for a lot of lawyers is they're feeling stressed out doing all the things for work and buying more and more stuff to make themselves feel better. When you do that, though, you end up chaining yourself further to the job that's stressing you out. As more and more expenses are taking over your income, you need more and more income to maintain those expenses. So just think about how much your lifestyle costs now versus when you were in law school or when you were first starting out, right? Most likely, your living expenses now are higher than they were earlier on in your career or when you were in school. I posted recently about how we can have more freedom in our lives when we're more intentional about how we manage our money and pay attention to how much we spend on things that we don't actually care about. And someone on LinkedIn, Michael Mulder, shared that post and he said, "Too often we find ourselves feeling like we need a treat to make up for a particularly hard day or week. But the problem is that part of those rough days and weeks are a result of those quote unquote treats. Shout out to you, Michael, because I thought that comment was spot on. Because when you decide to treat yourself to the annual vacation in Hawaii or the bigger house or the bigger car, those things inevitably increase the amount that you're spending, which means you need more money to keep up with them. So now you're more dependent on the job because you need the money. And again, hear me. I am not saying don't buy the things, the bigger house, the car, the trip, right? I'm saying make sure you're actively choosing the trade-offs that come with buying those things based on what you value. Too often we think about our spending as if we don't have a choice, just like the participant in that presentation with the annual vacation to Hawaii. We think about it as if it's just what it is, right? It is what it is. There's nothing that I can do about it. This is just the amount I spend. But if you're going through life and you're spending without intention, without having a plan, without any consideration for whether you truly care about the things that you're spending on, then you're making a lot of unintentional trade-offs and choices that impact other areas of your life. I know people who make multiple six figures a year and have made multiple six figures a year their entire career or for a large portion of their career, but don't feel like they can afford to do something different, even if they're ready to leave those jobs because they're not serving them or they're not a good fit anymore. It's a big part of why I do the work that I do, because nobody should feel trapped doing something they don't want to do anymore because of money. Nobody should feel stressed because of money. Nobody should feel burdened by money problems, especially when you make a six-figure or multi-six-figure income and there are just some slight tweaks you could make to the way that you manage your money to have a different outcome, to open yourself up to having options, to not be chained to the job, right? It's the classic golden handcuffs. Actually, years ago, I did an impromptu informal training for all the first-year associates in my former firm's Atlanta office, or at least the ones who wanted to come to my training, because some of them said they didn't want to come. But I told them I'd buy them lunch and we could get a conference room, and I wanted to talk to them about golden handcuffs. They were just starting out, and I had seen so many people over the years make decisions that ended up constraining their options for what they could do going forward. Because now they have this mortgage or that car payment or the school tuition or whatever. And so what I was telling the first years was basically like, yeah, you might really like what you're doing right now, but there might come a time that you want to do something different. And there are trade-offs to making certain purchases or certain decisions now. So rather than living at the outer edge of your income from jump, making some slightly different decisions can help you have more options, more flexibility available to you later. That's why all of this is so important, right? It's not just about budgeting or paying off debt or saving. I mean, I enjoy all that stuff, I'm not going to lie, but I know you don't care about that. But what you do care about is having more control of your time. What you do care about is being able to leave a stressful or toxic job without worrying about money. What you do care about is not having someone else have so much say in what you can and can't do. So many people request time off, or maybe they wanted to do something other than the norm, like take extra unpaid vacation time or something like that, and they had a higher up or supervisor tell them no. And many people in that situation would just feel stuck and accept it as the way it is. But the people who've been managing their finances the way we talk about here, when they got that no, they decided they were doing it anyway and either affirmatively put in their notice or were unfazed by the threat of losing their job. And you'd be surprised how quickly the supervisors change their tune, right? When you have your finances under control, you have that kind of control over your schedule, over your career, over the things that matter to you. And it's such an amazing place to be. Like, I felt so free practicing when I got to the point that I didn't need to be there. Imagine the kind of practice you could have, the way you could craft your career, the risks you might take, the things that you would propose, the way you would approach your cases, the way you would approach interactions with more senior attorneys if you knew you didn't need to be there. That's part of the trade-off you're making when you're not managing your money intentionally, when you're making default choices and not questioning them. Every time I do a spending analysis with my clients, they're always surprised by things that are in there because most of us don't pay attention to our spending. We just spend the money and look back like, oh, how did I spend this much? But you can intentionally plan what you spend and what you don't, and what goes toward paying off debt and what goes toward investments and building wealth. And you get to decide whether you want to be in the same place financially 5 or 10 years from now, or if you want to make some different decisions now that help you build wealth. Remember that there's always a trade-off. Everything that you buy, everything you do, every dollar you spend is money you can't use for something else. So make sure that you're being intentional. It starts with acknowledging the responsibility that you have for your own finances and the choices that you're making to get to where you are now. From there, you can make different choices and put together a plan that leads to you having more control of your money and ultimately your time. That is exactly the work I do with my clients. So if you're interested, head to rothomas.com/call and let's talk about how we can work together. I'll help you put together a system to manage your money where you intentionally decide where it's going. You know exactly how much you need to achieve your goals, and you know exactly how to get there. So head to rothomas.com/call now and schedule your consultation. All right, that's it for this week's episode. Come connect with me over on social media. I am on LinkedIn, Ro Thomas, and Instagram at I am Ro Thomas. Subscribe to the show and leave a review, both of which help more people to find it. And please think of a friend or two who would benefit from this information and share this episode with them. As we close out, friend, I pray that you go forth with the realization that you are infinitely worthy and that wealth is available to you. Take the information you learned today, apply it in your life, and as you do that consistently, week after week, you will inevitably take steps to regain control of your time, build wealth, and live the life of freedom and choice you deserve. Talk to you later.